I think one of the things that helps kind of look at unit economics is they always run into when I'm, advising companies at the operating level with the C-suite, is one of the things you have to do is you have to kind of start getting everyone to track their time. And you're not tracking their time because your big brother going, oh my gosh, you're professional or you're not working and all of those things. And that's the immediate reaction of most founders. I'm not going to ask people to track their time because, in fact, it's not worth it to me. But if you start tracking time, not in a punitive way, but in an informative way, you can actually start to understand the unit economics. Such a big portion of SaaS companies is labor. And if you do not know how people are spending their time, then you can't calculate unit economics. You can't calculate how much, this customer service is spending on support calls for a specific feature set, which could become a unit. You can't understand how much time product managers are, spending researching something versus if their time isn't in Jira. So you have to start finding ways that are non-intrusive, that capture how people are spending their time so that you can use it to make decisions, and not productivity decisions, not punitive decisions, but decisions on how in fact people are really spending their time. And when you're smaller as a founder, you know how everyone's spending their time because they're usually in a circle around you or you're very close to it. And as you start to scale, it's very hard to realize how people are spending their time. And so if you can start to kind of create a culture that says, let's record the time that we're spending on things, not to ad nauseum, but like enough to direct, like to have it directionally correct to make decisions. I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do as a founder, as a leadership team, or as a CEO, is to start really getting into the practice of recording your time so that you can make better decisions, not for anything else. And I think that's one of the things that I've found helpful when I've kind of stepped in, when I've leading a company or stepped in to kind of help coach a company, not necessarily as a board member, because we try not to get into so much of that detail depending on the stage. But I think that's one thing you can do, is when you start recording that time, that is a factor into the unit economics and calculating it, because so much of SaaS businesses are labor-based.
Maybe to add to that, like there's this L&O framework, the leverage neutral overhead framework, right? So often I'll tell my product managers, like, think about the things that you're spending time on and what they're actually contributing to the business or to the customer, right? So is this a leverage task where if I put a little bit in, I'm getting a lot more out? Is it neutral? I get as much as I'm putting in, or is it overhead and it's just admin? And you should definitely be optimizing for doing the things that are leverage tasks, right? So it's doing your own little kind of cost benefit on your time. And I think across the company, you can also apply that same lens, right? And I guess if you do know kind of where people are spending their time, then you can start to kind of like, shift them in the right direction.
I think that's probably one of the most debated topics at Series A and Series B companies, predominantly because of what you just mentioned, which is time allocation, right? How much is each different team, particularly, for instance, customer success or customer support, depending on what you label it, how much of their time is spent with directly delivering services and the solution to the customer versus actually being part of the upsell or renewal cycle?
Yeah, it is. Tracking that and kind of really understanding how you're spending your time is the way that you can really get underneath that